Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's special meeting of the council. We're here for two agenda items. And before we begin, Madam Clerk, would you please do the roll?
Thank you and good evening. Councilmember Steve Leonardis.
Present.
Councilmember Marcia Jensen.
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Spector.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rob Rennie.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Marika Sayak.
Here. And if you could all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. So as I mentioned, we have two agenda items, but as with any other public hearing, if you would like to speak to us tonight on anything that is not related to either certification of election results or appointment of our commissions and committees, you may do so at this time. I have no cards, and I see no one coming forward, so we'll move on to our first agenda item, which is certification of the municipal election. Item number 1. Ms. Manager, would you like to make any comments?
No, I believe the report speaks for itself, but we are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Council members, anyone who'd like to entertain a motion for adoption of the resolution certifying the November 8, 2016 election results?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
So I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And now comes the fun part. So after we've certified, we get to watch swearing in of our two council members. And on the person who we have invited to swear them in requires no introduction, really. He is a former mayor and current Supervisor Wasserman. Please join us. And if I can get a microphone to you, I will ask council members Spector and Jensen to join you down below.
Good evening, ladies. There we go. It is absolutely my honor to be here today to be part of this ceremony. Congratulations both on your recent victory. You know this oath of office very well. I'll start it out, and you insert your name as we go along. I,
Marcia Jensen, Barbara Spector,
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. You know what? And I'm going to do a do-over. Okay? I'm going to do a do-over, even though it doesn't say here. Would you please raise your right hands? Thank you. We'll do that again. George, you ready? All right. Now it's official. That's good. You can just hit, it's a little trash can on the bottom. Delete. Okay. There we go. I was, absolutely. Okay. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
To the Constitution of the United States.
To the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation, or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Supervisor Wasserman, for doing that. It's always a pleasure to have you back in our chambers. Congratulations, Councilmember Jensen. Congratulations, Councilmember Spector. Okay, so thank you all for attending tonight. I'm just going to run through our process. First, I wanted to thank all of you for applying to serve on one of our boards, commissions, and committees. Our government relies on individuals such as yourselves willing to participate and serve. So we want to thank you for applying, and we hope that after the round of interviews and selection, there will be an opportunity for those of you. And if not, we do ask that you look at another opportunity if not chosen today. So what we're going to do is we're going to interview by commissions. So those, for example, the next one that we're going to do is arts and culture. And I have 5 applicants. You'll come forward. You may sit down here. You will be given 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Anything that you feel pertinent that's not in your application, feel free to share with us. Then I will ask the council members if they have questions, general questions that could be asked of all of you, and then if there's any specific questions afterwards, we'll get through that. After we've done all sets of interviews, we will then begin our voting process. You may stay for that, or you may watch on TV, or if you have other things you have to do, our clerk will be in touch with you to let you know of the final results and the next steps. Okay? So council members, any questions before we begin? Okay, so if I can call forward all those that are applying for arts and culture. And I have 5 applications. And just take a seat. Okay, so it looks like I have 3. Okay, so I will, am I pronouncing your Chaudhry? Go ahead. You have 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
My name is Ani Chaudhary. Currently, I work with a management consulting company called McKinsey and Company. Before McKinsey, I founded 3 companies, which were all acquired in India and 2 in the U.S. I grew up with a liberal arts education, did my MBA, and have been interested in art and culture through my life. I think that is what drives us to build more important things and actually find meaning in what we do. Technology and science make it easy, but it is arts and culture that actually support us as a civilization. And I would like to contribute anything I can in making at least our local area really nice and beautiful and very, very livable for my family. My wife is a PhD in genetics, and I've got 2 sons, 8 and 4, and it's my privilege to be here.
Thank you. And I should clarify that this, before me, in case you've never been here, you will be given 2 minutes, and so when the yellow light goes on, it's just a reminder that you have 30 seconds left, and then the red light, when that goes off, it just means that your time is done. Okay, thank you.
My name is Ellis Sweeker. I'm an emergency physician. I practice at Good Sam, and my wife and I have lived here for over 30 years, and I love the town of Los Gatos, and I love art. And this, for me, has been a great opportunity to combine the 2 things that I really enjoy. It's also a work balance, if you will. I've been a scientist as a doctor all my life, but the human side of being a physician is how you relate to people, and I think that's what art and culture really are about. I enjoy that, and I've had a great year being on the commission the last year. I've gotten to know all the wonderful people. I've met people I never knew lived here, and I've gotten to see what the commission can do. And I would like to continue contributing in the way that I can. I'm not an artist, but I have a lot of experience raising money, funds, and I'm hoping that I can bring that to this town so we can reach out to the many people who would like to see art really reach its rightful place in our community. Thank you.
Mr. Janoff?
Thank you. I'm Jeffrey Janoff. First, I want to say I think it's a great problem that you have. So many talented people are applying to volunteer for the town. It's fantastic. Myself, I've been with the museum, the Numu Museum, for about 5 years. My last position was president of the museum. Before that, I've been involved with the San Jose Museum of Art. I've been on the board of various dance troupes back in the 80s. So I have a lot of experience with art groups. I'm also currently a member of the Los Gatos Art Association, and I'm a painter myself. I do oil painting, and I've been in some of their shows around town. But I really think the importance of art and culture in our community is really should be a high priority, because it is something that takes us from our normal everyday lives and transports us to some new world, especially with art and its many forms, which we have dance, we have opera, we have performing arts, we have visual arts. All of that is very, very important. It brings the town together. So I think this position is very important in promoting that in our community.
Thank you. Okay, council members, any questions, any general questions that you'd like to ask of all three? Councilwoman Spector?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a general question. If you could identify one addition to the arts in any form that you would like added in Los Gatos.
And then why don't we start, we'll go left to right, Mr. Jenna.
Okay. I think what we really strongly need is a center for performing arts, some kind of a venue where we can present plays, lectures, musical performances, anything. A space for the performing arts is really vitally needed, I think.
I couldn't agree more. I think that is probably the crown jewel for so many of the arts that we experience around us, but it would be great to have it here locally in Los Gatos. I love the music. I love the art that's being created by many artists, but it would be nice to have something that's more permanent, where people could, in fact, put on maybe some plays, maybe do some acting. We could have a lot of very interesting experiences here. We have bright people in this town, and I think they're willing and they're prepared to do many things for us if we could give them the venue.
I grew up in India, which is not a very rich country. At least it wasn't when I was growing up. And so I think that if we are able to create opportunities for kids and grown-ups to participate in functions, like we've got enough parks, we've got places where it can be done for much cheaper. So the way I look at doing something is like, can we pull more people into doing things rather than just having a place? I think there is enough places. What it needs is more people engaged, kids being interested in painting, interested in drama, things like that. And for that, it could be street plays, it could be almost anywhere. Like, I think that it's not about the infrastructure, it's about the people, and that's where I would want to focus on.
Thank you. Council members, any general questions? Any specific questions you'd like to ask? Oh, I'm sorry, council member.
Actually, it is a specific question.
Okay, please do.
Mr. Chowdhury, thank you for applying. I was familiar with someone who worked for McKinsey and was traveling all over the globe all the time. And so I'm curious about what your availability would be if you were selected.
Yeah, that's a great question. McKinsey has generally been known for management consulting, which is where people travel 4 days a week. What I do is a little different. I am the general manager for retail operation solutions. So what I do is I take some of McKinsey's consulting and convert that into technology that clients can then use to tactically do the things that we advise them to do. It requires less travel, a lot less travel, and I'm sure I can attend.
Thank you. Any other specific questions, council members? Okay, well, thank you all for your time. Okay, next is our Community and Senior Services Commission. We have 5 applicants, and so if all 5 of you can come forward, please. Oh, I see. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a short pause. I think we're missing an applicant. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. So similar to what we did with the arts and culture, we'd love for you to introduce yourselves. You'll have 2 minutes, and then we'll ask you questions afterwards. So why don't we start with yourself, if you could introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ray Blocky. I've been a resident of Los Gatos for 39 years. I retired from a 40-year career in business about 13 years ago and have been actively involved in volunteer activities ever since. As stated in my application, I volunteered as a docent at the Martin Luther King Library for 5 years, and at the same time I was a volunteer tutor for 6 years with the Partners in Reading program at the library, also Martin Luther King, which assists adults to improve their reading and English skills. I served on the Santa Clara County Civil Grand Jury for 2 years. One of those years was as jury foreperson. I spent close to 10 years as a member of the Santa Clara County Juvenile Justice Commission, whose purpose is to oversee all juvenile justice activities in the county. I served out of those 10 years, 2 years as the vice chair and 2 years as a chair. I left the commission in October. In my last volunteer job, I worked very closely with the probation department, district attorney's office, public defender, community service organizations, juvenile court judges, and the board of supervisors. In addition to normal commission activities, reports are created yearly, the inspection of juvenile facilities, and many other juvenile issues. As a commissioner, I was involved in numerous commission and county committees dealing with juvenile justice activities that required my active participation between 30 and 80 hours a month. I worked on teams to collect and analyze data, make recommendations to various juvenile justice departments or to the Board of Supervisors. I like the Senior and Community Services Commission. The Juvenile Justice Commission had 2 youth commissioners, and as part of their membership, I found that they provided some very valuable insight and perspective in the basic decision-making process. During my time as a commission, there were 3 noticeable achievements that I'd like to mention. I'm going to run out of time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And it's Blocky, you said, Mr. Blocky?
Yes, Ray Blocky.
Okay, thank you. And if you don't mind handing the microphone, thank you.
Okay, that was impressive. Good evening. My name is Susan Del Bene. I'm relatively new to Los Gatos. I lived here about 15 years ago. Always wanted to come back. Moved away to South County, and then successfully made my way back to town. And now I'm at a point in my career, my professional career and my personal career, to get involved. And I've never volunteered. I think it would be quite interesting to volunteer, particularly for this town. I think this town is spectacular. I professionally work for a nonprofit organization and have so for the past 15 years, a healthcare organization, specifically in renal disease. I think I can lend quite a bit to the commission, and I'm very, very interested in what the town does provide on a volunteer as well as a community to senior services. And moving into my senior years, I'm very, very interested. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I've lived in Los Gatos since 1993. I'm a retired attorney. I was with my firm for 31 years. My prior career was in recreation therapy. This past summer, Supervisor Wasserman appointed me to the Advisory Council for the Council on Aging SourceWise, which is the funding agency for Santa Clara County for the Older Americans Act. I'd like to participate here in Los Gatos on senior issues, and so I would ask for your consideration for the commission. Thank you.
And I just want to confirm, you're Maureen Heath, right? Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. I'm Lydia Norcia, and I have lived in Los Gatos for a total of 18 years. Prior to that, I lived in Saratoga for 28 years. So I have been a resident in this area for quite a long time. At this moment, I live and work in Los Gatos, and I love Los Gatos. It's the most wonderful place to work and live. And I've decided that I would like to give back to the community. My background lends itself very well to this commission. I am a licensed marriage family therapist, and I've been licensed for many, many years. I had a private practice working with children, teenagers, families, and seniors. And my practice is closed now. I'm retired from that, but it was on the border of Los Gatos and Saratoga, so I'm very familiar with the population, the location, and the schools. I am also a certified senior real estate specialist. I work with seniors who are transitioning and provide services that they might need in that transition process. My experience working with seniors is in my counseling practice before, as well in my career now. In addition, many years ago, I served on the Youth Commission here in Los Gatos, which is no longer here. We worked with the Los Gatos Police Department, as well as the social services of Santa Clara County. So I would really like to give back to the community and volunteer, and I would be privileged to be on the commission. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Tom Picrow. I've been on the Community and Senior Service Commission for the last 2 years, and I've been chair since April of 2015. The commission does a lot of important work, and I'd like to continue to be part of that work for the town. The one priority that we've been working on is information and resource awareness and availability for people in the town, and particularly for seniors. And this is an effort that we've also suggested the possibility of a senior resource hub and meetup center. The Adult Recreation Center does some of that work now very well and is very valuable, but we think there's a lot more can be done. They're limited by resources and space. A second emerging area that I'd like to, for the commission to look into is that of transportation. I'm particularly interested in looking into the volunteer driver programs like the Heart of the Valley one that's run out of Santa Clara, and also to low-income resident coupon-type programs like Saratoga's experimental or pilot program on taxi driver coupon. And so also would say that I think the Age-Friendly Cities initiative is actually an opportunity to focus and gain support for these types of initiatives, but only if it's led by a cross-section of town leadership, so that, because what the application is just a set of goals that the town wants to achieve, so that it represents truly the town goals and not just those of the commission. So thank you all. It's been a lot of fun working with you.
Thank you. Okay, council members, general questions? Councilwoman Spector?
Thank you. General question for each of the applicants. Assuming that you had the ability and you were enabled, what is one thing that you would like to achieve within the next year on this commission?
Why don't we start with you, Mr. Picrow?
I gave you two things. The first thing is...
Do you mind using your microphone? Thank you.
Good idea. So the first thing is really to continue our work on resource information and awareness and increasing availability of resources here in town. I think the transportation one's important too.
I would fully agree with that. I think it's very needed. I would, in this first year, I would hope to enhance and research, subsidize residents for seniors who cannot afford to live in this area. I think it's a very important point that we need to look at. and something that's reasonable. I know that the North 40 had some apartments in that area, but I don't think the people that live here can really qualify for that, so we need to investigate that. I also would like to be sure that there's a place for the teens to be able to meet and be in a safe place. Thank you.
Housing and transportation seem to be the hotbed issues, but I think on a smaller level, we can partner with other agencies, such as El Camino Hospital has a virtual community now called Linkage, where seniors can sign up and get services, and volunteers can provide those services to seniors. So I'd like to look into all the opportunities and agencies out there that could provide more opportunities for the seniors here in Los Gatos.
I think those are all excellent ideas and would agree with them. I also think that as a to-be-soon senior, I would like to see the town offer up more services for seniors in terms of socialization, social services. I know that we have a senior center here in town, but the offerings are relatively minor and not extremely broad and attractive. And it would be great to recognize seniors as adults who like to do lots of things as opposed to just games and social gatherings. I know those are important, but it would be great to have a much more broader program just in the town itself.
I guess one of the disadvantages of going last is you've heard most of the suggestions here that I would totally, absolutely agree with. I think for me, expanding senior opportunities. I noticed in this week's Los Gatos Weekly, there was a computer tea class held at the Recreation Department here. I think more programs like that give are more of an open door here for seniors to participate, and also obviously the chance to communicate, because a lot of obviously the seniors that we have here are single right now. So that would be my suggestions.
Thank you. Any other general comments? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. So my question to everybody would be, so everybody, I think, just gave us a number one on seniors, but it is a community services commission. So could you tell me what you would do also that might not be for seniors? What else should we include, this commission be doing?
So why don't we start? Let's mix it up. Ms. Del Bene.
Del Bene. Yeah. Del Bene is Italian for of the good. Community. I have a 15-year-old daughter, sophomore at Los Gatos High, and I would love to see Los Gatos offer up some very attractive and interesting programs for teens. I don't want to waste these minds. I don't want to waste my daughter's minds. I don't want to waste their opportunities. I notice Los Gatos has really great programs for toddlers, for young children, but not lots of programs for teens. And maybe that's because teens aren't interested or aren't, their parents aren't pushing them to get involved. But I'd really like to see the town create some programs where teens can get involved.
Thank you. Ms. Heath?
I would want to look at some programs that focus on health and wellness. Some of the health issues that are facing Americans, such as obesity and diabetes. So try and get some more programs that focus on the aspects of health and wellness.
I agree that there's the two ends of the spectrum, and I think they're neglected in many ways, the teens and the seniors. So I think the major focus should be in those areas. And for the teenagers to have a place, as I stated before, that they can congregate and not feel like they're not wanted and be safe and still have fun. That's what I would say.
Yes, that's exactly a good point. Last year, one of the teens on our commission talked about a club that Los Gatos High has where they go once a month and meet at the Roasting Coffee Club, and they have music and environment, all sorts of things. But basically, it's an opportunity to blow off steam, to socialize, and to do it in a safe environment. And that's something we wanted to expand beyond what's being done now and broaden it, and we didn't achieve that goal.
Mr. Blocky?
Basically, what I obviously would agree with most of what everybody has said here. I think one of the approaches that I would take, though, I would use the two youth commissioners, and this may have been done already, and go out into our schools and find out what the needs of the youth are. Okay, this may have been done previously, but I think one of the things that would be very important before we create some programs is to find out what the actual needs are from the people that are going to be the users. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you. Council members, any other questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you all for applying.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is our Parks Commission, and we have 4 applications with 3 confirmed for attendance. Well, welcome. And as you've seen, the format, you'll introduce yourselves to us in 2 minutes. Huh? So, Ms. Gordon, would you like to start?
Hi, I'm Sandy Gordon, and I've lived in Los Gatos half my life. I've also worked at Cisco Systems, what feels like half my life. I have 3 young children, all in the Los Gatos schools, and we constantly use the parks for various activities. I'm currently a parks commissioner and would like to be reappointed for a final term. Part of the reason, and if it's okay, I'll read a little because I'm nervous, is because the parks are really a critical component of the character of Los Gatos. And I think that parks connect to and enhance the life here. But I also believe that we can do a lot more. I think that we can create like a parks community where we leverage the parks to create a tighter sense of our neighborhoods and our community. It's comparable to like the farmer's market. The farmer's market has become part of how Los Gatos defines itself. It's part of what people look forward to on a Sunday. There's a sense of community and socialization there. If we could have something comparable like that in our parks, where, for instance, you had a neighborhood captain of a park, because I think they passed out a map of Bachman. We have, I'm not going to count Oak Meadow just for the moment, but we have 12 different parks, including Oak Meadow. Each one of them is distinct and in a neighborhood. If we could get a captain for each one of those and build a sense of community and leverage the park in creative and innovative ways that bridge all of us together as a community, it could be a beautiful thing. So that is part of what I'd like to try, is out-of-the-box thinking, creative involvement of the residents in a broader scope than what they've experienced before, to really appreciate the value of what we have.
Thank you. Mr. Bunchik?
My name is Mike Bunsick. I'm a longtime 30-year resident of Los Gatos, a local high school biology teacher for over 20 years. I'm pretty much a outdoor parks kind of guy. I've spent much of my time in the local open spaces and parks, including the parks of the town. I serve as a docent for Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. Recently, I was appointed to the Citizens Oversight Committee for the Los Gatos Saratoga Union High School District for Measure E. And for the last 2 years, I had the pleasure of serving on the Parks Commission and would like to continue to do so. I've enjoyed my time tremendously. most specifically working closely with my colleagues on the commission and the staff and providing input for you all in the town in general. And I'd like to continue that effort. I think our focus is in outreach and more recently in safety issues in the park are paramount to moving forward. And like I said, I love the opportunity to continue. Thank you.
I'm Mark Secchia. Whoa, loud. I'm Mark Secchia. My wife Lori works for Logitech over in the East Bay, and my daughter Stella is a first grader at St. Mary's. We moved here in 2014. I've been living in Shanghai, China for 20 years, and I sold a business there. And we knew we were going to move to the Bay, and we really researched for about 2 years. And as soon as we saw Los Gatos, we kind of fell in love with it. And I only go to work 4 times a year. I work in Asia and still, and I go over there for about 2 weeks for 4 trips. Other than that, when I'm here, I don't have a whole lot to do. I'm just a house dad. And I knew I wanted to serve. I had been the president of our Rotary Club in Shanghai, and I kind of learned about service that way. And I came here and I did Leadership Los Gatos and wanted to find a way to get involved. And I applied last year for the ad hoc commission, but I was actually gone on that December interview date last year, so I missed them. And so I'm here and I'm now, and I don't nearly have the experience you guys have, so I don't have a whole lot of preformed opinions about what I would want to do on the commission. I'm more just to kind of lend an opinion to what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, any general questions? Councilwoman Spector?
Thank you. For each applicant, what one improvement would you make to the park of your choice within the next year if you had the ability to do it?
So, Mr. Bunsick, you want to start?
Well, I'll just focus on we've been tasked with a safety survey over the last year, and I wanted to mention Bachman Park, and we've highlighted that as probably our most critical need for some safety improvements. There's a court area there specifically, and some of the turf surfaces, and possibly some of the pathways we thought we identified. And if you haven't heard about it already, you probably will be in our report. So that would be my focus.
Mr. Secchia?
Well, the only things that really come to mind for me, one's the county park, which isn't relevant tonight, and it's the goose poop in the grassy area over by the playground. It's absolutely disgusting. I don't know if there's a way to do anything about that or not. And I find the sandbox over in Bachman pretty gross as well. I've seen cats crapping in that at night, and I'm sorry for my language, but when you have a kindergartner and you see them playing in those kind of environments, it's kind of like something that I would really want to fix, but that's about it.
I would do 2 things. So one is Bachman Park, of course, because of the gopher holes that are there that pose a challenge, as well as the drop-off at the basketball courts right there, which has been brought to our attention. But improvement has different meanings as well. So there's a way to improve the use of a park. We spent a lot of time putting in a beautiful structure in Oak Meadow Park, and it's used once, maybe twice a year. That's a phenomenal opportunity. It's a beautiful park. Let's improve the use of it by figuring out creative ways to get more usage of the, that dome. It's great.
Any other general questions? I actually have one. I've had many young kids approach me saying that there's toddler tots, there's passive areas, but there's nothing for the teenagers who want a park course or a skateboard ramp or something of similar nature. What are your thoughts on providing a venue or an outlet for kids of that age? Actually, let's go to Mr. Secchia.
I have to say that would kind of fall on deaf ears in my case. I think there's so much open space here. There's places to go, and you just have to make something up. When you go back generations ago, would your grandparents have complained about something like that? You know, kids now have the iPads and they have everything, and they're ADD, and they always feel like they need to do something a little bit more. But I personally wouldn't consider that a pressing concern in the parks currently.
Ms. Gordon?
Thanks. I know that in times past we talked about skateboard parks, and for whatever reasons, we decided that wasn't such a good option for Los Gatos. I think what I would probably do, because otherwise that would be one thing I'd offer, but I would interview, some of our teens. Maybe there are other things that they can do with the parks as they exist. maybe there's ways to get them involved, to get their feedback, to figure out what's viable. That is, if they'll talk to us, because they are teenagers.
So as someone who works with teenagers on a daily basis, and having dealt with them in the outdoors and quite a few times, I don't really think it focuses on facilities so much as activities and what you offer them in leadership. And I mean, they enjoy just being outdoors, and if you provide those kind of opportunities, we have a pretty good array of facilities out there. And it's been a long time since I saw a park horse at the high school, but I think it would focus more on that so much than facilities.
Any specific questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. Okay, we are now going to move to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. We have 8 applications with 6 confirmed in attend. Actually, 7, I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor, so Carrie Stivoletti will not be here. She's withdrawn her application.
Okay, thank you for that. And the ballot will reflect that? Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, well, welcome. You have the mics in front of you. If we could just go from left to right, and if you could introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm David Lancelot. I am a resident of Los Gatos. Obviously, I live right behind the library here, so I walked here today, pedestrianing on my way here. I am the head of legal of a division of eBay. I live in Los Gatos primarily because of the bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Right, I can walk to town, can walk to the library. I have a 5-year-old. I also ride to work regularly down the Los Gatos Creek Trail. So to me, it's like living in sort of a ski resort for skiers, if you can understand what that means to a cyclist. I live in a cycling resort that happens to be very close to my office, which is pretty awesome, right? The reason I'm here, the reason I want to be on this committee, is because we have really great facilities for recreational cycling, right? So men with $10,000 bikes and Lycra are very well served in Los Gatos. What we don't have is great facilities for everybody else. Yeah? My daughter is not safe to ride to school. Absolutely not. My wife will not ride here. It's too dangerous. When we get those 2 people to ride regularly, we will address our most pressing, in my opinion, problem, which is traffic. Right? We have a terrible traffic problem here. There are lots of places in the world that have addressed that problem with cycling and pedestrian improvements. And I could tell you the one thing I'd like to do, but we'll get to that later, I'm sure.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Bill Ellers. I'd like to join the committee so I can make cycling and walking more of an option for the people of traveling around Los Gatos. I think it's very important. I've been on and off cycle commuter since 1983, so I have a unique advantage, I think, for the ability to understand people's issues and like to just make cycling a better option for people.
Hi there, I'm Marianne Gustafson Sawyer. I'm a native of the area. I graduated from Lee High School and San Jose State. I'm also very active as far as I'm both a runner with Team in Training. We train out at Los Gatos High School. And also I'm a member of 2 bike clubs, Almaden Cycling and Touring Club and also Fremont Freewheelers. At Almaden Cycling and Touring Club, we have 1,200 members, and I'm one of the instructors of our safety academy. So we actually focus on helping riders to learn how to ride safely in all traffic conditions, including, biking up to Summit Road, being on the expressways, Highway 9 in town where we have to worry about getting doored, or also the traffic. I'm also a pedestrian here in downtown Los Gatos. I live a block from Safeway. I cannot tell you how many times I've almost been hit in the crosswalks. Just a couple weeks ago, my husband and I were walking along North Santa Cruz Avenue. We went to cross right there at Los Gatos Cafe. Some guy was racing to make the light there at Highway 9. The guy that was going to go straight had stopped, but the one that wanted to make the left turn just blew right through the crosswalk. If my husband hadn't pulled me back, you'd have only 6 candidates for the Bicycling and Pedestrian Safety Committee. So my goal here in wanting to join the committee is to increase the safety, the accessibility, but more than that is getting more people out riding and riding safely. I think there's a real education component here of working not only with our kids so that they understand that they need to ride more safely, but also with adults. Finally, I can bring some of the resources of the bike clubs and also some of the bike stores who have offered our clubs what can they do to increase bike safety to here working in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm not a good speaker, so I'm just going to read this. First, I'd like to thank the council for appointing me 2 years ago to the then newly formed BPAC. It has been an exciting and productive 2 years. I'm very proud of our progress as we started with an assessment of where we were in terms of bicycle and pedestrian issues and then started prioritizing them. Our number one priority project recommendation was the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. After council approval and several community outreach meetings, it will be completed and presented in just a few weeks. This master plan has not only produced a list of prioritized projects, but has also allowed our projects to qualify for county, state, and federal funding. I admit that I have a fairly critical focus on things around me, and I must say that it is very gratifying and fulfilling to be able to have positive issues to deal with rather than just negative ones. If I'm fortunate enough to be reappointed, I will continue to be a problem solver. I will continue to be a critical thinker who will ask questions to solve problems for a safer Los Gatos. I love living in Los Gatos. I grew up in Los Altos, but I became a parent here. I raised my children here and have had so many wonderful experiences here, and I want to be able to give back to Los Gatos. This is a magical and beautiful place and is better enjoyed at the slower pace that walking and bicycle have to offer. Throughout this process, safety has been our major concern for both students and residents alike, but our youths have provided a focal point for many of our efforts. I'd like to be able to responsibly encourage Los Gatos students to choose safe alternative transportation options for their school commutes. I want our town to be safer to walk, safer to bike, and safer to drive. So that's the end of my personal plug. And thank you all so much for your support, and I hope to be able to serve on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission for another term. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karen Hebert. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I'm a resident since about 2004. I've owned a business here since about 1999. I live on University Avenue, and I've been severely affected as well by almost being hit a number of times. The reason I moved into town, I lived in the Santa Cruz Mountains for a while, was for the walkability. I mean, that is the main reason I love being here, and that's the main reason I moved on to University Avenue. My business is also downtown, and at lunchtime I walk everywhere. So I'm really interested in making things safer because right now it's not. I'm also affected just being on the street and having all of the traffic craziness that's going on right now, which is affecting everybody else wanting to walk downtown. And I want to make sure that that gets maintained for myself as well as for the other businesses in the area. I'm an avid walker and runner, and so I don't know that I mentioned that exactly, but I use the trails as well as all of the in-town all of the different parks and all of the different town streets. So very much familiar with both the east side and the west side of town, and want to make sure that it's safe for both bikers and for walkers. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Leonard. Ooh, that's really loud. I'm so excited to be here and actually applying for this commission. I walk 250 miles a month in town. I run, walk, bike. That's primarily what I do. I've been a resident of Los Gatos for 33 years, which is exactly how old I am. I work over at De Anza College, and I want to be here because I really want to make sure that we really take more time and think about how we are protecting our pedestrians. And everybody is here and concerned about safety, and you guys are all absolutely amazing as far as the stuff you guys are doing. I think we need to worry about biking and pedestrians, though, because especially with pedestrians, we're starting to think more about biking with biking paths, but I think we really need to keep in mind pedestrians, because they're the ones who could actually die right in front of us very quickly if we don't help them out with crosswalks. So thank you so much for the opportunity and the ability to apply for this position.
Thank you all. Okay, any general questions? Councilwoman Spector?
Thank you. I was going to defer to the Vice Mayor, but I'll pick it up here. For each of the applicants, assuming that funding is not an issue and having the authority is not an issue, please identify one pedestrian improvement you would make within the next year. Pedestrian.
And Ms. Leonard, why don't we start with you this time?
I am so excited about this particular question because what I really want is pedestrian safety lights. I want on our crosswalks to light them up so that when somebody is actually going across, they're not just waving a flag that flies off in front of them, which never works and doesn't stop anybody. I mean, watching people just sit there and wave the flags is sad as people go by them. I really want them to actually light it up with crosswalks so that when you hit that button, we're not going to hit the person who's trying to cross the crosswalk.
Gosh, the one thing that I would, if money were no object, it would be great. The reworking of the intersection at Highway 9 and University Avenue has really increased danger there, and more specifically, people coming off of 17 and making a right turn on University Avenue. They can't really see if I'm coming across the street from the other side of Highway 9, they can't really see me. So they're barreling into the crosswalk, and there's no warning for them. So I understand their situation, but I've almost been hit a number of times, and my neighbor was hit. So I would love to see some kind of a warning for people who are making a right turn onto University off of Highway 9.
I actually have the same idea about the crosswalks. I think that the crosswalks in town all need to be assessed about how safe they are or how dangerous they are. And some have line of sight issues. Some of them have the wrong timing for the crosswalk, and mostly it's drivers who may think that turning on a red light is okay to not just slow down and just plow through. They don't think about that there's pedestrians walking right there. So I think that each and every crosswalk needs to be assessed, and some need to be lit with actually blinking lights, but other ones need to be just lit, because at night there's many dangerous crosswalks in town that you cannot see as a driver. You cannot see anybody walking across until they're right in front of you.
So I would agree with them as far as the enhanced crosswalks. I've been down to San Luis Obispo where my son was at school, and literally they have crosswalks where they blink when you walk into the crosswalk. They actually have sensors in the crosswalk, along with a sensor at the sign there saying pedestrians beware. And I know when I looked through the master plan that's one of the number one things is the enhanced crosswalks, but I looked at where some of them are proposed, and I think we're missing some key crosswalks. And the other thing is the right turns too, both coming off 17, but I've even sat waiting for the light change there at University and Highway 9, and I've counted the number of drivers just blowing through the right turns. Probably 4 out of 10 are on their phone. They're not paying attention. And so I feel like I might as well just have a target on my back. And so I would love to see us really look at what those priorities are, and with the lighting, with the enhanced sight, and also with the blinking lights.
So if asked for a specific question about a position, the crossing on Blossom Hill over Highway 17, that's used by middle schoolers every single day during the school year, and it's very crowded, it's narrow. I'd like to see enhancements for that.
So I think, from an infrastructure perspective, I could go with a very expensive plan to just rethink how pedestrians move throughout the city and et cetera. But I think a more realistic approach that could actually be implemented would be to think about a corridor where you have the highest impact and the highest effectiveness. And I think it's pretty clear that where the schools are is where you're going to get the best increase in safety for the citizens of the town. And that's along Los Gatos Boulevard, right? You've got 3 schools, tons of kids, no sidewalks, not even bike lanes, but no sidewalks. It's nuts. So that I would invest in that corridor along Los Gatos Boulevard, down Kennedy, and down all the roads that basically run into the main roads. And on top of that, you know, I would do things like move the parking so that it's on the other side of the bike lane, right? Not so that the bikes are, you know, right in line of 40-mile-an-hour drivers coming on and off highways, right? Move the cars, put the bike lane on the side of that, the pedestrians on another side of that, improve all the crossings, and also put our enforcement, you know, you're talking about unlimited resources. Like in Manhattan, I'd put a policeman on every corner, right? Especially during school hours. I imagine the amount of money the town could make by just standing next to those, having a policeman standing there, giving out tickets to each person on their mobile phone, or blowing through those lights, right? Anyway, it's a pie-in-the-sky question.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Spector asked kind of the question I was going to ask, so I'll change it a little bit. First thing I'll say is actually we don't get much money from traffic tickets. All go to the county. We get only a little sliver, so the county will make money. But I have been hit by a car in Los Gatos. You can imagine how embarrassing it is for our police chief to get a call that the council members are being run down by cars in Los Gatos. So my question would be, what improvement would you make for bicycles? And I'm curious to see if you come up with things also outside the downtown, since I hear some downtown centric here, but I heard some other parts too. So my question is, again, money no option, what would be a bicycle improvement that you would make somewhere in town?
So I'll mix it up a little bit. Why don't we start with Ms. Gustafson? Are you Ms. Gustafson or Ms. Sawyer? Or
Either's
both?
fine.
Okay.
Okay. So anyways, as a bicyclist, I noticed that we've added a lot of the green bike lanes near the schools, which I think are really helpful. But we still, in downtown, don't have the sharrows. And then also in a lot of the residential neighborhoods, we have problems with parking, and then with the streets being so narrow, is they're really not safe for bicyclists. There's just not enough room if a car comes along. I many times had people, honking behind me or whatever when I'm taking the lane, which is legally what I'm allowed to do as a bicyclist, but it doesn't matter. The other thing I do is I would connect Highway 9 to Los Gatos Creek Trail. Right now there's not a safe way to get from that to Highway 9 or vice versa. And whether you're a bicyclist or you're a pedestrian or even a bike commuter using that path, there's not a way to get there.
Well, I have a pet project that I would love to see done, and it involves the connectivity from the north part of town to the south part of town, and that involves Los Gatos Boulevard and Winchester Boulevard, both of which are totally unsafe to cycle. It's possible to walk on Los Gatos Boulevard. It's pretty scary to walk on Winchester. I think that both of them could use buffered bike lanes, and that would separate the bicycle lanes from the traffic, which right now is moving along at somewhat over 35 miles an hour at the posted speed limit. And the roads like Los Gatos Boulevard, with 3 lanes in each direction, there's a possibility of removing all the parking from, say, Lark Avenue all the way up to Blossom Hill, and thereby allowing a lot more space to be used for a safer transportation method. I'm also a grandfather, and my wife and my grandkids, I would never take them on either one of those roads, and it's scary enough to take them on the creek trail, what with dogs on long leashes and strollers and other cyclists going maybe 25, 30 miles an hour. So I would make the changes on Los Gatos Boulevard and Winchester.
I would be definitely in favor of more bike lanes in the green painted bike lanes in in other areas other than just near the schools. But my solution would be much more from a communications and campaign standpoint. I run an advertising agency, so that's of interest to me, and I think sometimes it's because people don't know what the rules are. People don't know, people who are riding bikes or making way for bikes, they really don't understand what they're supposed to do. So I'd like to see some of that potentially on the trails. Maybe that would be signage. Maybe that would be some other kind of community outreach campaign to just kind of make people aware of, maybe what is the right way to be a good pedestrian and a good bicyclist.
If money is no issue in this, I would like to work with all of the surrounding towns to create a commuter bike path for everybody that is dedicated to just commuter bikers. Because I think what happens right now is if we're looking forward and we want to have more bicyclists working for transportation and get cars off the road, we need to actually think about how we're making our bikers commute. And right now it's unsafe to commute to most local areas. And with a comprehensive bike plan, what we could do is work with different cities to create a path that everybody could maintain and that would be well organized and efficient for bikers, so that they could get to where they want to go and we could get them out of their cars.
Great ideas, I have to say. I'm a big cyclist. I think about it all the time. I spend a lot of time looking at, I was part of the London cycling campaign in London when I lived there for 10 years. I was reading Copenhagenized tonight before I came here, which is all about cycling infrastructure. First thing I'd do is I'd have ciclovia. I'd shut the streets on the weekends, maybe on just Sundays, whenever. It's a great way to stop people using the exit onto the 17 as well. But I'd shut it all the way down Los Gatos Boulevard and Santa Cruz Avenue, right? Make it a safe place for children and families to ride their bikes and get into cycling as a way of getting around as opposed to a recreation thing. Then I would implement what the gentleman over here was talking about, buffered bike lanes. In the key areas which have already been determined in the master plan, right? Green paint does not stop anyone from killing you. Sorry. It looks nice. It makes it clear to the driver, but the driver who's on their mobile phone in their SUV is going to kill you, right? A concrete barrier is the only way to keep our kids safe. That's what I'd do. I'd implement that as soon as possible.
So I'll have to second your concrete bike lane separation, particularly along Los Gatos Boulevard near the schools.
Okay, any other questions, council members? Ms. Leonard, a specific question to you. Do you have a preference? You apply to both TNP and bicycle and pedestrian, and if you could just state your preference.
Actually, I'm really more interested in the pedestrian one, but I would be also interested in the transportation one as well, because Mr. Matt Morley over there really convinced me that that's the most important committee to be on. So I'm down with that one as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if no other questions, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
So now we're at Transportation and Parking Commission. We have 7 applications, and we have 5 confirmed for tonight.
So, Mayor?
Yes.
So Andy Swain will not be here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So what we'll do is we'll do the 2-minute introductions, and Ms. Leonard, since you've had that opportunity, I'll just let the other 3 go. Okay? So if we could start left to right, introduce yourself, please.
Hello, I'm Bridget Ballingal. I want to thank the town council for your time. 21 years ago, I moved to California from a state that had comprehensive busing programs for schools to Saratoga. And in my quest to understand the state's loss of busing programs, it led me to a tenure of 11 years at the Traffic Safety Commission. It was initially the Public Safety Commission. Was later changed by the council to the Traffic Safety Commission, driven by the overwhelming need due to increased traffic. But the public safety portion of my work allowed me to develop my experience in emergency preparedness. I co-wrote the City Emergency Management Plan and led the effort to bring Community Emergency Response, or CERT, to Saratoga, for which I won an award by the Emergency Managers Volunteer of the Year. My 11 years primarily were traffic. In 2001, I formed a task force with representatives from all 12 schools, including West Valley College, to work cohesively to solve problems. We wrote a traffic management plan and created a pilot program for Redwood Middle School, busing through all trans. I worked with traffic engineers to design and implement traffic flow patterns during the renovations of 6 of the schools in Saratoga. I also work with Safe Routes to School, and we address pedestrian crossing issues, parking shortages in downtown, as well as regularly dealt with individual neighborhoods, parking, speeding, and traffic safety issues. I resigned when I moved to, I should probably put this farther away. I resigned when I moved to Los Gatos 9 years ago, and I've enjoyed living in downtown area and getting to know our neighbors and working in Los Gatos. After my volunteering hiatus, I wondered if my experience might be useful under the Transportation and Parking Commission. But I don't think my experience is my greatest asset. I believe my collaborative approach to working with various groups, whether it's city staff or the council or mainly community members and the public. Commissions represent the town council, and safety is a hallmark of a strong community. As a part of this community, I would be honored to serve as a commissioner. Thank you.
Good evening. Excuse me. I'm Natalie Ladd. I've lived in town for 17 years. I love this town. It's a beautiful town. I raised 3 kids in this town, so all my children went to the elementary, junior high, and high school, so I'm very familiar with the schools here. I'm currently finishing my 3rd year on the Transportation and Parking Commission. I'm the vice chair right now. I have served in the last 3 years on the Safe Routes to School Committee. I'm the lead on the ad hoc priorities that we set the priorities for the commission. I was the chair for the bicycle committee before it became a commission. So I'm very familiar with a lot of the things that's been going on in town. I've attended almost every single council meeting in the last several years, and if I didn't come, I watched it on TV because I love everything that's going on in this town. We have a very young commission right now. I'm the most senior one at 3 years. Several people are, it's their first year. I think that Transportation and Parking Commission is a very important one right now. And I've been, since I've been on the commission, there's so many things that I've been on that I've seen through and have a lot of knowledge. I would love to continue to work on this commission and to see through some of the projects that I've worked on already. Thank you.
Hello and good evening. My name is Mehrdad Alipur, and I live in Los Gatos since 2006 for almost 10 years, over 10 years. I came to the state in 2002, and it has been a great state and great city. I'm a registered mechanical engineer in the state of California. I'm a lead AP also. I work with many cities in the Bay Area, from San Francisco to San Jose. I work for the design build contractors, and I'm a mechanical engineer. So I work with a lot of planners, and that's my job I'm doing. But the reason I'm interested is I have 2 kids at home, 6 years old and 3 years old. And before they get born, I was a usual citizen in Los Gatos. And since they start going to the school, I realized that the cars are not driving 25 miles and 35 miles per hour. And I have seen witness 7 accidents by my eyes in the block I live. I have seen people getting injured terribly. And I have raised my concern to the police department and to the city several times. And I'm really, really concerned about the safety of the kids. And before getting here and listening to the pedestrian, I was thinking that I'm crazy and I'm thinking too much. But I'm really happy that I heard those, because I'm not. And this is the main concern, the safety of our kids. And basically, I have been in 2 meetings of the commissioning, and I have provided them with the report and my evidence of the accidents and the unsafe pedestrian of the kids to the school and unsafe driving, like 65 miles per hour driving within the school at Blossom Hill Road. And this is a concern which that's why I want to be on the committee to bring it up to attentions and get more concentration and focus on this agenda. Thank you.
So what we'll do is open up to general questions. Does anyone have a question? I have one. This is one of our few commissions that meet early in the morning, and so I just wanted to make sure that does not conflict with your personal or work schedules, and you'd be able to make that commitment to attend on a regular basis. So I'm seeing nods. Okay. Any other questions, either general or specific? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. Okay. And now we move to planning commissions. 5 applications with 4 confirmed to attend tonight. Oh. Yes?
Roshan Corsiglia will not be here.
Will not be here. Thank you. Okay. So if I could have Mr. Barton and Mr. Travis just introduce yourselves, since the other 2 provided their introductions earlier.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Jim Barton. My wife and I moved out here to California about 32 years ago. And about 22 years ago, we moved to Los Gatos, and we've lived there ever since. Started off here in the hills, right up here above the high school. Lived there for quite a while. And then recently we were living down in the Almond Grove for quite a while. Walking around town, it was interesting listening to the stories about the traffic and the pedestrians, because I've seen all of that. And now we're living more over towards Monte Sereno. So in 2 moves, we've stayed within the town. We like it here. It's a great place, and I would like to contribute to the town. My path to getting there started back when I first wanted to do a major remodel on my house up here in the hills, and had my first interaction with the planning department, the planning committee, or the planning commission. And it was an interesting experience, and it made me very interested in how that process all worked, because before it had been very opaque to me. Busy with career and travel and everything else, didn't see a lot of what was going on here, but that started to really get my attention. A few years later, went into Los Gatos leadership and graduated from that, and that gave me a much greater appreciation for the Planning Commission and what they do. I think all the things that we've heard today say that planning is going to be involved in a lot of these issues that have come up. And to me, it's always very interesting to be right near where the center of the action is and helping to make things work. I see my time is running short here, so perhaps later I can tell you about why I think I'm qualified for it.
Thank you. Mr. Travis?
Thank you very much. My name is Nick Travis. I grew up here in Los Gatos. I'd like to say resident. Unfortunately, my parents' property was in Saratoga, but attended all of my schools and sports here in Los Gatos. After graduating from high school, I went all the way over to Santa Clara University, graduated from there and got into commercial real estate. I then spent 9 years working for the university as the director of real estate, handling acquisitions and development for the school. While I was there, I was living in Sunnyvale. I decided that I wanted to get involved, so I spent 4 years on the Sunnyvale Planning Commission. I served as chair and vice chair of that commission while I was there. I'm a licensed real estate broker, licensed general contractor, although I wouldn't ask me to remodel your house. I just moved back into town with my new family after being obviously in Sunnyvale and Santa Clara for a while. And being on the Sunnyvale Planning Commission, it gave me a taste of giving back to a community, and I decided that this was a community that had given a lot to me, and I wanted to give something back. So I decided, with some experience, this would be a good place to start. Thank you.
Councilmember Jensen and then Vice Mayor.
Thank you all for coming. My general question to all of you has to do with the hypothetical that you all answered. My question is, one of you mentioned this document, others of you didn't, so I want to see how each of you would apply the residential design guidelines and standards to the hypothetical question. And if you don't know what they are, you can just say so, or you can answer.
And actually, why don't we start with Ms. Janoff, and then we'll go from right to left.
The one in your application.
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry, the one in the application. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. The residential design guidelines are a fairly comprehensive set of guidelines that help with anything from evaluating your streetscape, massing of your project compared to others in the area, so sort of the general look of it and feel on the street, all the way down to what kind of windows and doors and what kind of curb appeal you have to apply. And so on the hypothetical, there's a situation where you have neighbors who are not happy with what is being proposed, and some are. I think exploring those residential guidelines with the neighbors, amongst the neighbors, understanding what is and is not at issue would be very useful. Trying to find some grounds for consensus. So if it's a height restriction, if it's loss of visibility to the sky, if it's shadowing, those sorts of issues are outlined in the residential guidelines, but the resolution and how they get applied to a specific project really is a little bit more of a gray area, where the project-specific design issues and the neighbors really have to come together and understand those constraints and guidelines to come to an adequate solution.
Evening. The residential guidelines, design guidelines, as I see them, as they're guidelines for communications with the town, communications with the citizens that are in that area. So when somebody wants to redevelop or remodel, they have an understanding, and there's guidelines that they go by to kind of match up what's in the area. And they don't obviously want to make a huge project so big that it's going to be out of quirks with everybody, but it's something that blends in. And I think that's the important thing with Los Gatos, is we want to keep things blending into how our area has always been. And so that's why we have that type of guideline.
Okay, well, I'll admit that I am not deeply familiar with the residential design guidelines, but it's something that I think I would become familiar with quite quick. As the others have said, I think guidelines is probably a key thing here. There are rules for how things should be put together, but they need to be interpreted by the members of the Planning Commission to balance all the different factors that go in to a development. And I think that balance is really the key issue that has to be achieved. And so the guidelines help you do that, but also the community input from the people around are important to that. I think property rights of owners are important to all of that. So I'd study up and I'd make sure I was on top of it.
Thank you. Residential design guidelines. The way I always looked at them, they're a great place to start. When you're designing your new remodel, fantastic way to look at how the city is going to look favorably upon your plans. That being said, when it comes time to discuss it with your neighbors, things may need to change. So in the hypothetical, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think there were any issues with the proposed development of the single-family home, but the neighbors had some problems, especially if you're a single-story home next to a two-story home. There are issues with sightlines and shadowing and nowadays solar. So those guidelines need to adapt and be reviewed by staff, who does quite a bit of the heavy lifting, and the Planning Commission, so that everybody can come to a middle ground where you don't always get everything you want, but where everybody's happy.
Vice Mayor?
Good luck with that, Mr. Travis.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for applying. You're starting to touch on it, but I'll go ahead and ask the question I was thinking of anyways, a little more philosophically, but please add details. How do you balance the property rights and the neighborhood concerns?
And Mr. Masher, why don't we start with you, and then we'll go to your right.
Balancing the property rights. Well, we have rules, guidelines, interpretations. We have community input. We have commissions, and everybody has to collaborate to that. With that, that's where we have to decide the balance of what is proper and what is right. The rules should dictate what we should go by, and if there's any leadway to help us balance that, it could be by certain rules that have wordings or whatever. That's the interest of property rights that might be balancing out for that particular project. But the balancing with other members of that area for their rights of what they want, they're going to say, well, if you allow it to be over here, it's going to be able to be over here. And so now how are we going to balance that? That's why we have the rules. And I think that's what dictates what that balance is going to be.
Well, we've touched on this before, obviously, and the word is balance has come up several different times. And, of course, there's state laws about what you can do and can't do, the local regulations and all. I think that rather than the job of the planning commissioner has to be to make that balance, and to do it in such a way that people think that their rights aren't being unduly trampled on and you're still getting a good outcome for the community. The phrase that comes to mind to me is, I'm not sure what it looks like until I see it, but when I see it, I know, what the right answer is going to be. It's going to have to be taking all the input from all the people and churning through it and coming up with a good answer that works.
Mr. Travis.
Thank you. Property rights is always a difficult one. You have a right to quiet enjoyment of your property. You've paid for it. It's yours, and there are a lot of beliefs that go along with that and what you should and shouldn't be able to do with your own property. But as a planning commission, you have to weigh that against the community, and how what someone does on their own property will affect the community. A lot of times it'll come into play with, say, a large tree removal permit that gets bumped up to the planning commission. Sure, it's on someone's personal property, but a lot of times communities have very strong feelings about how that's going to affect the surrounding neighborhood. So it's a delicate balance of listening to all the evidence and the property owner and the neighbors and trying to come to some sort of form of an agreement.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. The right to enjoyment of your property when it conflicts with someone else's right to enjoyment of their property. And it's particularly troubling when you've enjoyed your property for a long time, as in the case study, and maybe you're a one-story house and the two-story is going to be really problematic. So you do have these issues. I think it's not. I think the Planning Commission is faced with a lot of gray areas, and it's incumbent upon the commissioners to understand the breadth of what they're working with, how policy comes into play, how guidelines come into play, but ultimately finding, if possible, you're never going to get 100%, well, maybe you would, but it seems unlikely in some of these pretty knotty issues. But the best you can do to reach a consensus where each party has the ability to achieve something that is in their interest. So you have inclusion in the process without feeling like the Planning Commission is steamrolling over, but the Planning Commission facilitates a conversation, perhaps issues actions to further a discussion or to get some more information. And I think it's a process that needs to be deliberate, understanding, compassionate, but in the end, if there still remains an issue that needs to be resolved, then the planning commissioners, individually or as a group, need the strength of character and the basis of fact and conviction to the town to do the right thing. Yeah.
Any other? Councilwoman Spector.
Thank you. This is a general question. I would like each of you to identify one development in town that, in your opinion, either negatively or positively reflects upon Los Gatos.
Mr. Barton, why don't we start with you?
Oh. Well, the obvious one is the North 40.
I was going to do that. That
Okay.
currently exists.
Okay. Oh, that currently exists. Well, one that comes to mind was quite a while back. The toll house wanted to expand and build something that crossed the highway, the exit to 17 there. And there was quite a bit of stir about that because they were going to build a big construction there. They obviously wanted to take advantage of their property and grow their business there. And it fell to the planning commission to sit there and say, well, is this going to really be a Los Gatos kind of a thing? And as I recall, the decision then was that it wouldn't be a Los Gatos kind of a construction. I think that at that time, in that place, that was probably the right decision for the town to make.
Thank you. I would, if I was going to go with one, I would say most likely the Swanson Ford development that recently opened retail. But the addition of the housing on site, the addition of that retail and office up front on the corner of Blossom Hill, which is such an iconic corner, I think was a vast improvement over sort of a rundown car dealership at the time. I think it's sort of revitalized that corner in that area, and I think that's been a great benefit.
Shifting from commercial to residential, there are two developments on Los Gatos Boulevard, which were Robeson Homes development, Laurel Muse, and the one at the T of Shannon Road. I think what really was done well is the overall design. I mean, there's quite a bit of density, which is a different issue, but the design of the homes is beautiful, and they're interesting characteristics of each. They're close together, but there are differentiators. So I think the design, the overall architectural design was a home run. How it impacted traffic on Los Gatos Boulevard when traffic is already an issue in town is something that perhaps the density of the projects could have taken into consideration. But I will say that the architecture is beautiful. It's a nice addition. And I think when developers talk about whether they can or can't, whether it's commercial or residential, build something that works with the character of Los Gatos, sort of that unique, wonderful difference, but the Victorians and the craftsmen, and you can do it. And those are two great examples of how the developer worked hard to make beautiful design that really fit very beautifully within Los Gatos.
Well, negative and positive project. One comes to mind is what I deal with on a daily basis, and that's Netflix. Building is huge. It's not in full operation yet. It brings positively a lot of jobs here. Negatively, it's impacted our traffic, and it's going to impact our traffic even more when they go full operational, especially with the residents along there on Lark Avenue. What will happen in the future, that's going to be decided, I guess, later on down the road with other projects, but Netflix comes to mind as a positive and negative project that is here in Los Gatos.
Any other questions? I have a question. The Planning Commission is a commission that is layered with more rules, I guess, than other of the commissions. No ex parte communication, several state rules and laws that you have to abide by that you may not necessarily personally agree with. Share with me in a minute how you would work through utilizing those various rules that you may not agree with but have to achieve a decision at the end. Mr. Travis, let's start with you.
Thank you. I'm somewhat familiar with the rules and regulations that go along with Planning Commission, and having done it, there are some difficulties that arise when you're in a situation where a developer, while they are willing to come to the meeting, of course, would like to speak to you outside of the meeting and give you more information and make sure that you understand their position ahead of the meeting. I had a rule just for myself. For the most part, didn't meet with developers outside of meetings. I had other members who would obviously announce that they had met with them prior, but for me, it was easier to go to the meeting, take the presentation at face value, hear the members of the public, and make my decision from there.
Ms. Janoff.
Yeah, those rules are really important to follow. I think they're there for good reason. They may feel constraining, but if you think about how not abiding by those could get you in trouble or the planning commissioner at large in trouble, I think it's not worth it. They are reasonable, and certainly if you feel the need to acquire more information from one of the presenters, you can certainly request that during the commission meeting and get that input at a later date. I mean, it doesn't have to happen in the parking lot. So yeah, no, I think the rules are there. Certainly coming from HPC where there are relatively few rules regarding, along those lines, not that it's any less important to the town, but I think coming up to speed on those would be very important to do, and if I'm fortunate enough to be selected as commissioner, one of the first things, if it's not formal training already provided, would be to brief with fellow commissioners or with staff to make sure I came up to speed really quickly.
Well, the rules and laws and stuff, kind of like being on council. Things come forward, somebody wants to talk to you about items, and you just can't talk about them unless you're in an open forum where the community and the public understands that. And if anything is this closed parking lot or wherever, that needs to be brought up to everybody, because you can't keep anything inside. It's an influential thing to somebody, and that we need to protect that element of rules that keeps us pertaining to what we're here for in the first place, and that is serving the people, but in a non-biased and in a legal way.
Well, I'm used to rules, having an engineering background, but also I've been a public company executive for many years, and there's a lot of rules there too in terms of who you can talk to and who you can't, and in those you can go to jail or have the SEC take you out. So I'm used to the whole concept of following certain rules about disclosure, about who you talk to, about what you can and can't say, and those rules are there for a very good reason, and you follow them.
Any other questions? Any specific? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've just completed all the interviews, and again, I want to thank each and every one of you for applying, for coming forward and sharing your thoughts and answering our questions. I'll speak for myself. I've certainly learned a lot from each of you, and so I think it'll be a tough decision. Madam Clerk, if you could walk us through the process, and then we'll go ahead and take we'll fill out the written ballots. So.
Thank you. So the voting process will be done by ballot. The ballots will be distributed after the interview process. So the number of votes available per council member for each board, commission, and committee is indicated on the ballot next to the name. Please indicate your choice by either an X or a check mark next to the candidate's name. Just as a reminder, there are 3 candidates that have applied for multiple commissions, and they have been highlighted for identification purposes. Please remember that you can only vote for each candidate once. If you vote for the same candidate more than once, all votes for that candidate will be disqualified. Once you've completed voting, your ballots will be collected and tallied, and the results will be read aloud. In order for a candidate to be appointed, a majority vote, 3 or more, must occur. In the event a majority vote does not occur, then we'll have a process that will follow when we do the tally.
Yes, Commissioner, Vice Mayor Rennie.
Thank you, Mayor. Question, if an incumbent was unable to make the meeting, can we vote for them or not?
At this time, no, because no written communications were received from any incumbents.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the process? Yes, Madam.
Just curious if you have any ex parte communications that you need to report.
Thank you for reminding me. Council members, any ex parte disclosures? Councilman Leonardis?
What does ex parte mean? You communicated with the individuals prior to?
Let me clarify. Do you have any information from meeting with any of the applicants that were not, that we do not have based on the interviews that were just had?
No.
Any other council members have anything to disclose? Okay. Thank you. And any other questions? Okay.
And as you're filling out your votes, I'll just make that reminder again, since our first time, the ones that have applied for more than one commissioner, you can only vote for once. If for by chance you put them in 2 voting categories on 2 different commissions, then both would be disqualified, both votes.
While while the clerk is counting votes and tabulating, we will take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. Go. Okay, thanks for your patience, everyone. Okay, Madam Clerk, will you please read out the results?
Yes. So for the Building Board of Appeals, Chris Ray was unanimously appointed. There is still one opening on that commission. We had 2 vacancies and 1 applicant. For the Library Board, John Housley was appointed unanimously. For the General Plan Committee, there is no clear winner. There were 2 votes for Larry Maggio by SIAC and Specter, so there's not a majority, so that will have to go back out. For the Historic Preservation Committee, there is 1 opening, 2 applicants. Nancy Durham is appointed with the majority by Leonardis, SIAC, and Specter. Catherine Janoff received 2 votes from Jensen and Rennie. Personnel Board, there are 2 openings. Larry Maggio is appointed with 3 votes from Jensen, Leonardis, and Rennie, and Edward Matchak is unanimously appointed. For the Arts and Culture Commission, there is 1 opening. Ellis Weaker is appointed with 4 votes from Leonardis, Rennie, SIAC, and Specter. Ani Chaudhry received 1 vote from Jensen. Community and Senior Services Commission, there were 4 openings. Maureen Heath and Tom Pacrow are unanimously appointed. Ray Blocky received 4 votes from Jensen, Rennie, SIAC, and Specter. Lydia Norcia received 4 votes from Leonardis, Rennie, SIAC, and Specter. Susan Delbenny received 2 votes from Jensen and Leonardis. Parks Commission, there were 2 openings. Mike Bunsick and Sandy Gordon were both appointed unanimously. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, there were 4 openings. Jeff Lockridge is appointed unanimously. Amy Leonard is appointed with 4, with votes from Jensen, Leonardis, Rennie, and Specter. David Lancelot is appointed with 3 votes from Jensen, Rennie, 4 votes. Jensen, Rennie, SIAC, and Specter. And Marianne Gustafson Sawyer has 3 votes from Rennie, SIAC, and Specter. Transportation and Parking Commission has 2 openings. Natalie Ladd is appointed unanimously. Bridget Bollingall received 4 votes from Jensen, Leonardis, Rennie, and Specter. Amy Leonard received 1 vote from SIAC. Planning Commission, that will have to go back out for advertisement. There is no clear winner. So 2 votes were received for Catherine Janoff from SIAC and Specter, and Nick Travis received 2 votes from Jensen and Rennie. So the reason we're not doing a runoff for that is because Catherine Janoff had been appointed voted for on HPC, and because she applied for 2, you cannot vote for her twice.
Councilwoman Specter?
Can you run that by me again?
The Planning Commission one? So 2 votes were received for Catherine Janoff. She applied for both Historic Preservation and Planning Commission. So 2 people voted for HPC and 2 voted for Planning Commission. So you can't vote for her twice. You can only vote for her once.
Okay, so if I'm going to ask Mr. Schultz also to weigh in. In this particular case, because of the runoff, Madam Clerk, if you could just re-explain it one more time, and then and I'll see if I can rephrase my question.
So Catherine Janoff received 2 votes for Historic Preservation Committee and 2 votes for Planning Commission for
Correct.
different council members. We can't do the runoff because she's already been voted for by 2 people for Historic Preservation Committee, so you can't vote for her twice.
Councilwoman Spector.
And actually, there will be a question that will probably involve Mr. Schultz. Given that scenario, since the next step would be another vote, a runoff vote, why would what votes the council had in level 1 make any difference barring level 2?
So it is a little complicated, and it's our first time going through it. In the case of this, because you're only allowed to do 1 vote, the only person that's disqualified from voting in a runoff would be Rob Rennie, because he actually voted for Janoff in another from another commission. Rob voted for Janoff for the Historic Preservation.
And so did I.
And so those 2 are not eligible to revote, but the other 3 are able to revote for either the person they did on planning and recast that same vote, and Councilmember Leonardis could also revote. So we could recast and see if we could get a majority with those 3 votes for Planning Commission.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor Sack. This doesn't make any sense to me that we force a whole other round of interviews, because Janoff wasn't appointed to anything, so the votes for, and HPC was filled by somebody else that did get 3 votes, so she can't even be on HPC now, so she should be eligible for any of us to vote for her on a re-round. Do we really write the rules like this?
That's how we wrote our rules. We do have the ability to reach a majority with 3 votes on a runoff between Mr. Travis and Ms. Janoff.
Using the 3, but 2 council members would be excluded.
2 would be excluded.
Okay,
Their original vote for the Historical Committee and their original vote for Planning Commission, and their original vote for Planning Commission would not change.
Okay, Councilwoman Spector.
I just want to say I agree with Mr. Rennie. I understand that I don't have the rules that we adopted in front of me, but that doesn't make sense. But if the only thing we can do is another a revote on the 3 who didn't vote for Ms. Janoff for HPC, then if that's our only alternative, then this one person thinks we should take that alternative.
Mr. Schultz, I'm looking at you. So if I understand correctly, the next step then is, well, first question, is this the only commission that was not filled? We also have...
No, the general plan did not receive a majority.
Okay. So given with planning, we have 3 remaining. With the general plan, is there an opportunity to do a second vote on general plan, or are those?
No, because Bill Cohen was not here for the interview. Larry Maggio was actually appointed to the Personnel Board.
Okay, got it. Okay, so if you could prepare for the Planning Commission, we'll try the second round, and we'll go from there. Councilwoman Spector? Councilwoman Jensen?
Yes, Mayor. As I understand it, then there's 3 people who have the ability to vote. The 2 people who voted for Ms. Janoff for HPC are not voting for this. However, their votes, original votes for Planning Commission, are being counted as though they are voting in this runoff. Is that correct?
So there's 1 council member that did not place a vote for a planning commissioner. So 2 voted for Catherine Janoff and 2 voted for Nick Travis. So there are 3 who can vote in this round.
Right, but is it 3 people is it just a vote of 3 people, or are we counting those original 2 votes in the runoff?
I'm looking.
Because then I have no right to vote. if it's that way, because I did cast a vote.
If you were allowed to count.
I just want to count my original vote. Is it counting? My original vote in the
Yes.
Planning Commission, is it counting?
Yes.
So Mr. Travis now is sitting with 2 votes.
So
is that correct?
it makes it very
And
difficult.
Ms. Janoff is sitting with 2 votes.
Yes.
Why this has not worked is because we had a council member that did not vote on someone, the one scenario that we didn't plan out. And so being able to, and that there's many reasons why you would not want to vote. And if he did not vote again, you wouldn't have a majority again. And so my suggestion is we do re-advertise this for a very short period of time and come back for a vote for this planning commission position. Otherwise, you've done exactly what you tried not to do, and that's try to predict the results of the commission.
Councilwoman Spector.
Because any way you look at it, if you count your votes, unless the 4 that voted were going to change their votes, you have someone who's been able to decide based because they know what all the votes are now.
Okay.
That might have not been the intended consequences of it, but that's where we are. So my opinion would be, even if you come back at your next meeting and do a revote of all 5, you could do, or you could re-advertise for a very short period of time, or whatever you feel is necessary.
Okay.
Would be the way to handle it.
Councilwoman Spector, you had your hand up.
I am speaking as a council person and not as a lawyer, but I thought that our rules provided that we have a second vote now, as opposed to in a week or a month or whenever.
Councilman Leonardis.
Thank you, Mayor Sayoc. I do not understand why, if someone else was already appointed to historical preservation, that the individuals who had voted not for that person could not, at this point, use their votes to vote for a planning commissioner. So to me, it would be different if there was a runoff in that department, obviously, or in that position. But since somebody was appointed by majority, it seems like now the remaining votes should be eligible. But I understand we didn't write the rules that way.
And so real quick, for those in the audience, the reason why we're having this discussion is we've just revised our policy guidelines, our policies, and as you are witnessing yourself, when you write things with a certain intent, the implementation oftentimes doesn't happen the way you intend it, and as we're now learning those details. Okay, Mr. Schultz, legally, given what we actually have written, what is your legal opinion that we should do moving forward?
The way our rules are written, you're only allowed to vote for one person, regardless of how many times you're on there. So in this case, the ones that had previously voted for Janoff could not vote for the historical committee, could not vote for them in this case, and that would be Rob and Barbara. I don't have it right in front of me, the sheets.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think you better.
Rob
I don't think you better go that way.
So legally, from what our rule says, is no. You could recast the vote right now, just with the 3, and they would determine. The only way you'd be able to get appointment now, because the other 2 have been disqualified because they voted for someone earlier. So the only way you could appoint under our current rules if all 3 vote for the same person to be on the committee, and you could do that at this point in time.
My next question then is how, you mentioned we can re-advertise this and have this come back to us. How quickly can that happen?
Well, we typically advertise in the weekly to let the public know about the availability of an opening. And we have a 2-week lead time, so the earliest that something could get in the paper now is probably close to the end of the year. If we just had it open for about 2 weeks or so, probably the earliest we could come back would be in February. So that it would be a very aggressive timeline.
Okay, Councilwoman Spector.
Thank you. Given what Mr. Schultz said, which is that the 3 people who are not disqualified could vote for the Planning Commission, I still believe that that's what we should do, because that is what our rules provide. Now, that there may, you have to get 3 out of 3. That may not happen, but still, it is allowed under our rules.
Actually, and let me clarify.
And that was my first suggestion.
Okay, and may I ask for clarification? Is it 3 out of 3, or is it majority of the 3? So is it 2 out of the 3?
No.
It has to be 3. Okay.
It has to be 3.
Okay, Vice Mayor, and then Councilmember Jensen.
Yeah, that's not the answer you gave Councilwoman Jensen. You said her vote for.
So I don't have the votes in front of me, so I have
vote for Travis. She and I voted for Travis. We still get to keep our votes for Travis. We just can't change them to Janoff.
No, because you have a runoff, and so the runoff is between the two, and you're not able to.
I'm not able to vote at all. This is completely ridiculous.
So you're able to vote again, but you're not able to vote for Janoff. So we know what your vote is. So yes, it would count for what it is right now.
Councilmember Leonardis.
It still doesn't make sense to me why, if the vote was called again, that we would not go through each and every person who was interviewed this evening, since it's, I don't know. Because the other council members who had previously voted for somebody for HPC, they might choose to vote for yet somebody else.
We had lengthy discussions on that, and certainly maybe that's one of the changes we make, but that's not the way our rules were written. You can only vote for one. So you're right. When I read it now, is that yes, you're all eligible to vote in the runoff, but 2 of you cannot vote for Janoff because you did for another. You put her vote in another category. If you were to vote for Janoff in this one, then both votes, we'd have to go back and look and disqualify you for both.
Councilmember Leonardis.
So that also means that the 2 who had voted.
We have tailored ballots where it would say who you were capable of voting for. That is ready to be done that way. So all 5 would vote. It'd be tailored to the fact that 2 of you cannot vote for Janoff because you did for other committees. And the ones that did not vote for Janoff on another committee could vote for either Travis or for Janoff. And that's the closest we can get to what our rules say.
And with the tailored ballots, it's possible that either candidate could still get 3 or more votes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I recommend that let's vote again, and let's see what happens with this next round.
What is
Our ballot has 5 names, 4 of them are blacked out.
That's just yours.
Mine and the vice mayor's, yes.
Councilman Leonardis.
Based on what Councilmember Jensen had just said, I mean, I received a ballot where 3 of the names are blacked out. I guess everyone has the same ballot. I just want to make sure.
No.
No. Okay.
Because you didn't cast a vote, you have the ability to vote for either one.
I'm the one who's causing this problem. Sorry.
And that's why my second conclusion was on that, because you certainly have the ability not to vote for anybody. That is certainly your right, and I think other commissioners did, other council members did that on other commissions. So you have that right, and so that was why my other alternative was to, instead of having blacked out names, to simply re-advertise this and come back with a full list so that all council gets to vote for all the candidates.
However, the mayor has said that we are going to be voting again.
And ultimately, question of, at the end of these appointments and with the vacancies that remain, does these appointments, does it require motion? or once the appointments are made, that's done? That's done, okay.
No, we do a vote for it. I think we've done a vote before. That the appointments, you're ratifying the appointments?
Okay. I mean, if I've seen it done both ways. So if we
Okay.
do a motion to ratify the votes, we can do that at the end.
Okay. We have the ballots in front of us. The results can end up the same. There's certainly no pressure. Let's just turn them in again and let's see what happens. And at least we've tried that course. And then, if necessary, we re-advertise. Huh?
So we have 3 votes for Catherine Janoff, Syak, Leonardis, and Spector, and 2 votes for Travis, Rennie, and Jensen.
Okay. Any comments? Okay. So I do. Do you need a motion to direct the clerk administrator to re-advertise, or can we just tell you
No,
to
you
do
can
so?
just tell me that.
Okay. So I apologize for this little glitch. As I mentioned earlier, we were working towards trying to simplify and clean our policies. These are lessons learned that we will take back and revise in our policy making. Thank you and congratulations to all who have been appointed, to those who were not. We please encourage you to do and apply again. I promise we'll try and make it easier. It's a tremendous thing to see how many applicants came forward, and we just wish we had more positions available. But please come back again, and we will do our best to try and match you with the appropriate positions. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.